The Lewis County General Service Committee is called to order. The clerk of the board will proceed with a roll call.
Legislator Leviker,
Here.
Legislator Osborne,
Here.
Legislator Nortz,
Here.
Legislator Hanno,
Here.
and Legislator Nellenbach, and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here.
A quorum is present.
I move to approve the committee minutes from March 31st, 2026. Do I have a second? The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Presentations. We have two presentations for today. The first one will be the Lewis County Fairgrounds Economic Impact. Matt O'Connor, Lewis County Agricultural Society President, and Rachel, Lewis County Agricultural Society President, and Rachel Lisk, Lewis County Fair Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as you know, I pulled a little double duty. I work for the county and also spend some time, my spare time at the fairgrounds. So this is, we've been wanting one of these surveys for quite some time. And just recently at the New York State Association of Agricultural Fairs, they gave us the option to do two economic impact studies, one local and one statewide. And most of the fairs through the county or through the state jumped on that chance to do that. And so it's a very good, it was a very informative thing, and as we'll go through here shortly. So as you know, most of you have probably been to the fair. We're a board of 24 directors and 29 associate directors. 17 directors have gone through the system and now they are emeritus, which most of them still are very much active, in the system. So we have Rachel developed a junior fair board a few years ago. We have 8 members into that, and that just keeps people moving through the, keeps them involved in community stuff. And, as they come up through, ages, we start out at 14, at 14. So that's very, it's very good to keep them involved and hopefully become, we actually just had one recently just become a full associate member. So, our fair is held during the third full week in July. It's at the fairgrounds. And our mission is to showcase agricultural and the youth of Lewis County to instruct the public on agricultural, horticultural, and mechanical arts by conducting an annual county fair with exhibits, livestock, upholstery, and farm products, and also the carnival. So, wrong direction. It's not just the fair that is at the fairgrounds. We have, there's several parties. We have ice skating. We have, oh God.
Oh, you're giving it all away.
Yep. So, there's a lot of, the school is there during sporting events. There's sometimes the zoo is, or petting zoo is there, or circus, I guess it is, comes in the fall. Farmers market is there all summer long. So, it's not just the fair. And over the recent years, there's more and more stuff happening on the fairgrounds to, almost daily, there's someone there or event there doing something. So over 50 members of the New York State Association of Agricultural Fairs joined in on this economic impact. So and we're all doing the same thing. We're all networking, trying to keep, that agricultural education moving along. So in 2024, the New York State fairs across New York State had approximately 5,000 jobs and added $265 million into labor income. So those are big numbers for across the state. And $749 million in total sales, for hospitality, entertainment, and retail. So, it's not just us, but it's certainly statewide, and there's a lot of things going on. For us alone, so we had approximately 4 million in direct spending in the county. The activity supported an estimated 75 jobs, $1.8 million in labor and income, $5.2 million in sales and local industry, food services, accommodations and such. Typically, or last year we had 40,000 visitors estimated because we don't take attendance. But Rachel will go through a few numbers here shortly that will know how we get to these estimated numbers. So, but with 40 jobs, $945,000 in earnings, 2.7 million in sales for Lewis County. Those numbers are pretty big, and we certainly appreciate everything that the county has done for us to help us through the years, with all of our projects and such. So from here, I will let this one's back. Yeah.
So just something that I'd like to add to there on the bottom, it says that out of the 40,000 visitors, an estimated 50% of them traveled from outside of the county. So it just goes to show that not only our own residents attending our fair, but people from outside the county are also attending as well. So that's a cool little fact. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the power of networking. So as we don't take gate attendance and fees, it's hard for us to really know our number. And in my travels with New York State Association of Fairs and Expos and the IAFE, which is the International Association of Fairs and Expos, I've met some really great people from all over the world, in Canada and Australia. They have fairs that attend these conventions. I have become really good friends with somebody from the Big E, and they have a program called Placer AI, which basically is reading cell phone pings. So she is able to give me some really great information on top of the information that we got from the economic impact study. So this is last year's information for attendance. It says that we saw an average of 35.8 thousand. Of course, these are cell phone pings, so that does not include any child who doesn't have a cell phone or somebody who is older who doesn't have a cell phone. And then those people those are the individual people, and then the reoccurring people is just them coming back. They usually visit 1.58 times, whatever that may be, and their dwell time is 170 minutes. And then on the right-hand side, you will see the average of attendance, which is, so the turquoise is the reoccurring people, and the purple is the visitor itself. So it will show an average of 7 years. We have an average of 42.6 thousand people. Along with the Placer AI, it really shows some kind of cool information about the people in attendance. This is the average age. So you will see that the highest is 65 and over, and then the next highest is 25 to 35. This shows the daily visits from 2025. You can see that Friday obviously was our busiest day with the rodeo this year, which was sold out Thursday before the fair, before the event on Friday. And also it was the record number for a lot of our vendors and parking. Next is probably a Saturday with our demolition derby. All of them are very popular. Tuesday is opening day with the parade and fireworks. This is the visitor's journey. This is showing where they're coming from before and where they're going afterwards. So 44.6% come from home, 13.5% come from gas stations or convenience stores. Work is 7.9%, fast food 3.8%, and then afterwards 61% are going home, 10.9% are going to gas stations, 4.3% are going to work. Those are probably the people that come for lunch. And then superstores, which I think is just Walmart, 3.6%. Some hidden economic impact that I wanted to just go over. Like Matt said, we're not just the 5 days of fair. We are, if you go through the fairgrounds to walk your dog or or whatever, there is something going on every day. There are always people there. So some of the fundraisers held on our grounds are, as you can see, the auxiliary plant sale, Beaver Camp auction, Lions Club garage sale. Youth of Lewis County is going to be having their second annual Renaissance Festival and 5K. Some of the other events are Farm Safety Day, which brings in over 300, I believe it's fifth graders onto the campus to go over everything farm safety related. We have Food Truck Fridays, graduation parties, weddings, company picnics, and of course, all the sporting events that we hold. Past and future events, a little plug for hopefulness probably, is we had the Eclipse event, which saw people from all over the world at our fairgrounds. We've had Trunk or Treat. There's been talk about possible fall demolition derby or fall fest. And of course, we had the Clydesdales back in 2020 or 2019, I'm not sure without looking. And that was a huge draw to the fairgrounds too. People were coming from all over the place. And also we have DMV road tests held weekly on the grounds. So there's just a little bit of information if you want to get a hold of Matt or me. And obviously, I want to promote the fair July 21st through 25th, 2026.
So does anybody have any other questions for us? More than likely, we're not sure when that tower is going to go up, or it's essentially up now, but to be online, we're not exactly sure. They're going to be working on it. The last few years, we've had a temporary one they call a Colt that is set up for during the week of fair. That is still being planned to use if that permanent tower is not up and running by the time fair goes through. So, but we should be able to, and that's a Verizon tower, so that will, not sure how that works in the cell phone ping data game. So, yes, ma'am. Yeah, there's definitely a few more. There more and more are coming to it. I can't think of any. I want to say Governor is.
Jefferson County.
Yeah, Jefferson County went to. They have a sponsors. They still have a gate that they account for everybody, but they have a sponsorship for that gate admission. But there's definitely more and more coming to that, just because they're seeing that people will come in 2 or 3 times a day, come in for lunch, go home, grab the family, come back, and so on and so forth. So instead of spending, over a family of 4 spending over $100 just to get in the gate to walk around, they will, they'll spend more money while they're there because they're going to buy food and so on and so forth and play games. And that just helps out everything in the long run.
Also, too, I believe this summer, Fort Drum is going to run a shuttle bus from Fort Drum to the fair to help with that too. So be looking for more.
Yep, I believe that is the
Yeah.
case. I think Cassie,
Yep.
she set that up, or her department set that up. They've been working on that pretty good. So, and being that this year, 250 years of, the country, that'll be, we hope to promote, some of our, military personnel during that week. So any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for having us, and thanks for everything you guys do for us. So,
Thank you. Our second presentation will be the Seaville Complete Street Project by Casey Dickinson, BCA Principal Engineer, and Jeremy Glenn, BCA Associate Director of Transportation.
So my name's Casey Dickinson. Sorry about that. My name's Casey Dickinson with BCA Architects and Engineers. Thanks for having us today. So I'm going to open up with an introduction, turn it over to Jeremy, who I'll let introduce himself in a minute for kind of the core of the presentation, and then I'll come back, and Grace is going to help us out with some of the funding as well. So we've been working on this project for a while. We also have a relationship with the village of Constableville. They're undergoing a water infrastructure improvement project, almost simultaneously with this one. It's kind of a neat opportunity for both the county, BCA, and Constableville to partner and leverage funding from a multitude of agencies and try to take advantage of economies of scale, if nothing else. Try to duplicate or take advantage of efforts that we would have had to do for one project, but now there's 3 of them, so we might be doing things once instead of 3 times. So we're excited about the projects in Constableville and happy to be here today to give everyone an overview. So the project is West Main Street Complete Streets project. It's your County Route 52 in the village of Constableville. So this is just a simple Google Earth imagery with some labels that we added. I'm not sure if everybody's overly familiar with the Constableville area, but you have the county street, which picks up in the right-hand corner off from New York State Route 26, follows John Street, takes a left going west down West Main Street. The left-hand end of that yellow highlighted corridor is the village limits. And then just for perspective going north out of that circle area, that's kind of the main intersection in Constableville with the ice rink and the fire department right there. Going north is the village's Main Street. So Jeremy, if you want to introduce yourself and go through the details. Grab that.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Again, I'm Jeremy Glenn with BCA. I'm the design engineer and will also be heading up construction management when the project goes to construction. So this is just kind of a colored up rendering of the entire project corridor. Again, like Casey mentioned, it is right from the main intersection in Seaville on your right-hand side there, heading all the way out to the village limits, which is about 1,900 feet worth of full-depth reconstruction that the project is going to encompass. We have, let's see, I'm going to skip ahead because I think I can get a little bit more information when we dive in here. So this is that main intersection area. This kind of highlights some of the proposed features that are going to be in we'll call it the downtown area. You can see there's some red in there. That is going to be a colored stamped concrete snow storage area. The curbed island on the south side of the intersection is new feature to the intersection. Currently, it's a wide open, basically sea of asphalt right there. So this is going to control access and have a little bit better direction for some of the traffic that goes through there. There is an additional on-street parking addition there on Church Street and then also on Main Street. A little bit of additional help to help people with getting in and out of the public library, as well as access to the ice rink and the antique shop that's right on the corner there.
The post office.
Post office. The bioretention area is going to pre-treat some of our stormwater runoff and help with our permitting process. As we head out of the downtown area, we do continue concrete sidewalk on the north side of the road. The concrete sidewalk on the south side is limited only to the downtown area. And then you can see as we start heading out on the left-hand side, there's the snow storage, which goes from colored stamped concrete. It does switch to a grass snow storage. This is a look of what the project corridor looks like today. The first photo is eastbound heading in towards the Village Main Street intersection. Again, you can kind of get a look in the distance there beyond the stop sign of the wide open look. That's where that curbed island is going to go in and kind of really help out the drivers to not kind of feel like they don't have a direction of where they're headed there. Second photo is again the same direction, eastbound, headed in towards the West Avenue intersection. It's just a little bit further to the west. We're going to be installing concrete curb along both sides of the road here. Again, to kind of control the drainage that runs through there right now. You can see some of the remnants. I took these photos last week, I believe. You can see some of the remnants of a lot of the sanding that happens. Because of that, all of the grass on the side of the road is basically killed through the winter, and then it takes a little while to reestablish itself once you get into spring and then into summer. With the installation of curb here, a lot of that will be contained into the drainage system, and then hopefully, the residents will see a little bit of benefit in what their roadside lawn looks like through the early parts of spring. Last photo is westbound, so that's headed out of the village area towards the Thomas Street intersection. Just up at the top of the hill, you kind of go around a bend a little bit to the right. That approaches the limits of the project. Again, same features here. Actually, the Thomas Street intersection is going to be the termination of our new concrete curb, and beyond that will be basically the same section that's out there today. Let's see. All right. So this is a little rendering of our typical road section. It does, again, show the new full-depth pavement section, the concrete curbing on both sides of the road, and then the concrete sidewalk on the north side as we're heading out. That's going to be on your right-hand side here. And then on the bottom, we do have a typical section of our engineering drawings. It just kind of shows the same thing. This is a little bit more representative of right in the village setting. So you can see the colored concrete on the right-hand side. The alternative is the grass storage on the left-hand side. There is a brand new storm system that's going to be installed. You can see that on the right-hand side of the pavement. That's a representation of our catch basin and then the storm main. And then the new water main on the left-hand side. It's typically on the left-hand side or the north side of the road, which is going to be installed under, as Casey mentioned, the Village of Constableville's water system improvement project, which is going to be just in advance of the road project. Turn it back over to Casey for some of the project budget and funding.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to highlight, so this is going to be a completely different road section for the village and the town of West Turin. We went through quite a bit of effort coordinating that road section, the elevated curbs with both the county highway department and the town highway department for plowing. We all know that snow removal and snow storage is, a critical element of this design. And I think we did a good job working with John and with Doug's team at the town to get those details right, make sure the roads were wide enough. So this slide talks about project budget, and then Grace will come in for the right hand in just a second. We did open bids, construction bids last week, and we received several. This has been updated to reflect our apparent low bidders bid price. So the $1.98 million there in that top line. We received those bids. That was Powis Contracting. We have moved through our bid qualification steps that we take on every project. And earlier today, we delivered the qualification package and our reference check. So everything checked out from our standpoint. There's also a letter from BCA to the county in that package that indicates we take no exceptions with awarding to Powis at that bid price. We've also included, it's roughly 5%, the recommended legal and administrative budget. Those costs are county cost. We don't have, BCA doesn't have exact numbers of those, but that's a pretty standard way of budgeting those. And then our engineering expenses are, of course, our contractual fees. That's the budget that we've established and recommended. So bringing all that down to the bold text and numbers there, the total project cost right now, as we understand it, is looking like $2.5 million. And then for funding, I will turn it over to Grace if you want, Grace.
First off, thank you, Casey and Jeremy, for being here today and going over BCA's portions of the project. And hi, everybody. Grace Metzler up in the planning department, and I'll just chat briefly about some of the funding sources we've been able to leverage for this project. First of all, the county has secured $500,000 through the Empire State Development County Infrastructure Grant Program. This is a statewide program that, generally speaking, the state was looking to secure for all of the counties towards public infrastructure projects. And it's one we're looking to leverage in the future for other municipalities. This is one that we've applied for in Port Leiden, for example. So it's a source that you may see come up again. It's a 50% match program. And as you can see with the overall $2.5 million budget, we're going to meet that match very comfortably. And then the remaining portion of the funds will come from the New York State Department of Transportation. I see I have a typo up there, through the CHIPS program, the Consolidated Local Streets and Highway Improvement Program. These are standard funds that the Highway Department has in their budget that can be used towards the infrastructure installation as well as the engineering costs. The biggest thing I want to highlight about this project is that we've been able to align our project timing to really make each dollar go further by supporting the village's Water and Complete Streets initiative. We've been able to overlap funds through the resident project representation, through the survey costs, geotechnical services, and at the end of the day, by having all of these different things move forward at once, we're making sure that we don't duplicate efforts, put in our roadway, and then the village has to tear it up to put in their water infrastructure. It's really investing in the longevity of our village centers, aligning with our smart growth principles, and it's providing a pretty exciting model for how we can leverage multiple state and federal funding sources in our other village and hamlets centers as we pursue our Complete Streets projects. So any questions on the funding sources, I'm more than happy to address now, or please feel free to get in touch in the future. I'll pass it back over to Casey and Jeremy.
Thanks, Grace. Okay, our next slide is the construction schedule. I'm sure, once contractors start moving in, the project's going to become more visible to the residents, and some of us in this room might start getting questions. So this goes back into last week. Our bid opening was April 23rd. I mentioned that earlier. We've projected out all the way through project completion into 2027. So the steps along the way, there's a notice of award that needs to be acted on by the county before our contractor can take the next steps to contract award. I forgot to give it to the county earlier today, but I have 3 loose copies of that notice of award with me right now. I'll maybe, Tim, if you want those, I can hand them to you. So that's the next step on the county's to-do list. And then once we have a copy of this notice of award, we'll reach out to Powis and ask them for things like their payment and performance bond, their insurances, a signed agreement, their MWBE, and their SDVOB utilization plan. And then they'll return that to us, and we'll work with the county to move forward to signing the agreement and issuing the notice to proceed. And that's when the construction phase will start. So looking ahead, we're anticipating July mobilization, contractor moving on site, and things really starting to happen on the ground in Constableville. The water project, the village's water project, will be slightly ahead of that. So folks will see that contractor coming in. And then around November this year, the project should be substantially complete, which that means essentially the facilities are usable. So you should have your road, your curb, your stormwater system. The major components of the project should be installed and functional. And then we did allow some time for things like grass establishment, just general restoration and cleanup to spill over into the 2027 spring timeframe. That's the end of May on this schedule. Okay, and with that, I think we're all set, and we'll open up for any questions anybody has.
Go ahead, Tom.
Are you guys going to GIS map all the lateral lines, valves, hydrants, and catch basins?
So we have that as a requirement for the contractor. They will do that and transmit that data to us.
Okay.
And then typically there'll be a set of as-built drawings that are provided to, in this case, it would be the village and to the county.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions? It'll be exciting, and it's nice to see the aging infrastructure is probably 70, 80 years old, to be completed from the ground up. Water, storm drainage, and it'll be a betterment for the community, both the village and the county, for years to come. So,
Absolutely.
and a credit to Cassie and Grace and the whole team on putting this together, working with the overall team and securing funding. So, and we'll keep going every year through every little hamlet. So,
Josh, if I can clarify for the public, this is going to be a 2-year project. So this is going to be West Main Street this year and the water line. Main Street in Seaville will be the following year. So I just want to make sure the public's clear on that. We're just doing West Main today, this year, and Main Street next year.
any other questions, comments? All set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to draft resolutions and motions.
Okay, draft resolution number 1 is appropriating $60,000 from the 2026 fund balance to cover unanticipated increases in natural gas and propane costs for county buildings for the next 6 months. Funds will be distributed across multiple departmental accounts as needed. The Buildings and Grounds Director has identified the shortfall due to rising energy costs, and the county manager and treasurer recommend the transfer with ongoing monthly review. Any unused funds will be returned to the fund balance at year end.
I move that draft resolution number 1 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Mike? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 2, awarding a contract to Wilcox Sealing and Paving LLC for the replacement of the Lewis County Courthouse parking lot at a cost not to exceed $92,135.50. The project, scheduled for summer 2026, exceeded initial budget estimates, requiring a $43,000 transfer from contingency to supplement the $50,000 already allocated in the capital project budget.
I move that draft resolution number 2 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Jeff? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. What is in the contingency right now, budget?
Tim, would you have that off the?
What is left in the contingency?
Well, I mean, right now, what's in there before we take this out?
I don't actually have that number with me. We started the beginning of the year with 300,000. I think we pulled from it twice. So I think there's
Yeah, so I was just curious where we're at.
I can make sure it's in the treasurer's
Well,
report.
I'm sure we have enough to cover. I'm just wondering what the balance is. That's all.
Yep. Yes, we do have enough to cover it, but I'll make sure that's in the treasurer's report on Tuesday.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 3, directing the demolition and removal of a burned and collapsed structure located in the town of Martinsburg that has been deemed unsafe and a public hazard by the county code enforcement officer. The property owner's estate administrator or mortgage holder is ordered to secure, remove debris, and remediate the site within 60 days. If they fail to comply, the county is authorized to carry out the work and assess all associated costs against the property.
I'll move that draft resolution number 3 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Jeff? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 4, authorizing an amendment to the professional services agreement with BCA Architects and Engineers for the Village of Constableville roadway and complete streets project on County Route 52. The amendment adds services including resident project representation, right-of-way assistance, and permitting support at an additional cost not to exceed $133,000, bringing the total contract to $378,000. with costs eligible for CHIPS reimbursement.
I move that draft resolution number 4 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Benny? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
Just to make sure, this is the new, the one that's not in our packet, this is the new resolution that is replacing that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Seeing no more discussion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 5, appropriating $187,700 in the Highway Department budget to reflect revenue received from the sale of surplus equipment. The funds will be reallocated to the machinery and vehicle expense line for equipment needs within the department.
I move that draft resolution number 5 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Mike? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 6, awarding a contract to Bronze Contracting LLC for the demolition and removal of a condemned structure at 8401 Erie Canal Road in the town of New Bremen. The contract cost is not to exceed approximately $10,730, with total project costs, including testing, monitoring, and disposal fees, expected to remain under $20,000 and funded through the HAL Property Cleanup Account.
I move that draft resolution number 6 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Mike? Motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 7, accepting and appropriating $200,000 in fiscal year 2026-2027 DCJS grant funding for public defense services, including discovery reform and supplemental aid programs. The resolution authorizes distribution of funds to contracted providers, 75% Lewis Defenders, 20% McCluskey Law Firm, and 5% to the assigned council panel, and directs the county treasurer to allocate and disperse funds in accordance with grant requirements.
I move that draft resolution number 7 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Vinnie? The motion's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 8, which was handed out at the beginning of the meeting, is authorizing Lewis County to award the contract for the West Main. Actually, never mind, this goes under new business. I apologize.
Okay, there is no unfinished business. New business. The sealed bid results for the West Main Seaville Complete Street Project, RFP, were opened on Thursday, April 23rd, and have been analyzed and reviewed by Lewis County Highway Superintendent and BCA architects and engineers. Based on this information, a draft resolution has been prepared and distributed to the General Service Committee for consideration.
Now I can talk about it. Draft resolution number 8 is authorizing Lewis County to award the contract for the West Main Street Complete Streets project in Constableville to Powis Contracting Incorporated, the lowest responsive bidder, in an amount not to exceed $1,983,120. The project includes roadway reconstruction, drainage improvements, sidewalks, and related infrastructure. The contract award follows a competitive bidding process with 7 bids received and reviewed by the county and its consulting engineer. The chair of the board is authorized to execute all necessary documents contingent upon receipt and approval of required insurance, bonding, and compliance documentation.
I move that draft resolution number 8 be forwarded to the full board for action. Can I have a second? Jeff? The motion has been moved and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Under new business, we do have some discussion on railroad easements by Timothy Hunt.
Okay, as you all know, with our purchase of the railroad, there are easements that the railroad has with utilities and municipalities to cross that railroad. And we acquired those easements with that purchase. A couple weeks ago, a company that worked for GVT sent bills out to all of those municipalities requesting that easement. They do not need to pay them because GVT no longer owns the railroad, we do. And the question for you is, should we be charging the municipalities for those easements? And the village of Lowville is the primary municipality, and they have a number of different easements. To give you an idea, I've got a list. So it's not just municipalities, it's any utility, any commercial activity that has a pipe or a wire that crosses the railroad. They have to pay an annual fee for that right to do that. Right here is Village of Lowville underground sewer pipe. There's probably 12 of those, and the annual easement, and a lot of these are kind of messy. We're researching them right now and making sure they're all valid. But the Village of Lowville pays about $10,000 a year in these easement fees. So my question is to you, the legislators, do we want to continue to do that, or should we just waive that for the Village of Lowville going forward? And then with the private ones, the utility companies will start researching them and cleaning them up, and we'll bring that back at a later time.
Have you had a discussion with the village at all yet?
They reached out to Real Property because they got the bill and they wondered if they should pay it. And that is the only conversation we've had at this point. And that prompted Candy to send me an email, and I thought it was best to bring it to you.
Personally, I'd like to have time to discuss it with the village myself, since that's in my district.
Okay.
I'm not sure how the other legislators feel about what's in their district as well, but I think that conversation should be between us and the municipalities, individuals and whatnot.
Okay.
At this time, unless there is an emergency that it needs to be done now.
No.
No, well, that's my feeling.
Just so you know, I did contact GVT and told them, I told the village not to pay anything yet until we have this straightened out, so. Well, they won't, hopefully they won't be paying them, but if they had made the payment, we would, depending upon what the board wants to do, it would either come to us or we would refund it back to the village.
Any other discussion?
The other utilities, did they receive a bill also?
Do you mean there are only certain easement holders who get charged. There are a lot who, they're very minor. Some personal people who have a little section where there's something that goes through their property. Of course, the railroad do not get charged. It's really haphazard. That's why it's taking us some time to really review all of them and see who's been charged ever. Some were charged early on. They're no longer charged. So, some bigger commercial entities get charged. Niagara Mohawk gets charged. It was originally the Charter Communications. They get charged. Some big entities. The smaller ones, most of them do not. So
To answer your question though, has Charter been charged by GVT? We do not know that. GVT uses a third-party contractor to do all of this, and we have no way of knowing whether they've done that. Joan's going through right now and researching these, and we're sending letters out to people and notifying them that we own it, but we don't have a lot of information on some of these.
If we don't charge the village of Lowville, can we legally continue to charge the other one?
Yes.
yes, because there's a public purpose.
Do we give up any rights by not charging somebody?
The way that, if the board is going to consider it, the way that we would draft the resolution is that the board would authorize suspending any payments under that, those easements and leases, because the board always has the right to reinstate if they feel that at some point in time they need to do that.
I guess to add to that, Mike, and just thinking on it, to have a contract for maintenance purposes and whatnot, with the municipality, because it would work hand in hand, and also it would tie nicely with the DRI, with the Village of Lowville. Have a contractual agreement for $1 with the village. That way the contract would be, it wouldn't be null and void, it would be enforced. It shows that there's a contract in place, and it would be for $1 with the county.
That's a discussion to have with the village.
Correct.
Not at this. My
Correct.
next question
Just
is,
my
if we-
opinion.
I'm sorry. My next question is, if we suspend payments, do we suspend the easement as well?
No. No, the easement stays on record. That's the
Yeah.
whole point, because we don't want to bind the board later on if you determine that it's going to be appropriate to charge everybody for the easements.
It's for example, with the county roads, it's very standard for a gas company to come and want to push a pipe underneath the county road. They have an easement to do that. They don't acquire anything other than that easement to do it, but the county doesn't charge for that. And there's all sorts of those. In the railroad's case, they did charge for those. By the way, the county highway could do the same. They could charge for people using that easement to cross the road, overhead or under. So it's just a matter of whether you want to charge for it.
Yeah, and they're responsible for the infrastructure, whatever they push under, right?
Yes.
So with that, Vinny, when is the next village board meeting? I mean, obviously, we'd probably discuss prior to that, but then,
I believe we'll have it before our next committee meeting.
What section of railroad?
Yeah.
What section of railroad does that? I mean, from south to north, what section does it cover?
That is both sections that the county acquired. So starting here at the village line and going north. And this was really just a discussion, so we don't need to make a motion or anything today, and it can certainly wait till next month at the next committee meeting, Vinny.
I was going to say, I think the next village meeting is on the 20th, May 20th.
we'll have continued discussion with the village, and we'll go from there.
Well, not just the village, all entities. I mean, if you let everybody know some idea. I mean, I think we got a pretty good idea where the National Grid crosses and whatnot, just other easements that we need to be concerned about.
Any other towns or villages affected by it?
Not that I can see. I was I was thinking maybe Krogan and New Bremen would have some utilities under there, but I cannot see any. And the list is not very well kept. So we're doing a lot of research on these parcels to see what's there. And
There are easements in the town of Krogan and a couple in Denmark, in Casterland, but they're not the municipalities that own those. It's other entities. So we haven't seen any that come across for the municipalities. There is one, of course, over in West Carthage, through that municipality as well. So we're trying to tighten that up and have a better sense of which municipalities actually have any easements and which don't.
And we're not clear who pays and who doesn't. For example, Climax is an underground water pipe up at Casterland, but it doesn't show that they've ever been charged for that easement. That one might have been one that they didn't charge for. So it's been a little bit of work to try to comb through these.
Okay.
And generally, all the easements allowed for the railroad to charge, but they didn't necessarily charge a number of them because they were minor or for whatever reason. And maybe the county will come to the same conclusion.
Okay. We'll continue the discussion on that. There is no other new business, no executive session. I move to adjourn the meeting. Okay, Mike. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
Legislator Calamus.
Here.
Legislator Frost.
Here.
Legislator Nortz.
Here.
Legislator Hanno.
Here.
Legislator Lindicker.
Here.
And Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here.
A quorum is present.
I move to approve the committee meetings from 3/31/26. Do I have a second? Barry? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion adopted. That's a short story. We have two presentations. First one, Advocate Drum, Dave Zembiak. Please come forward.
All right, there we go. Oh, and here's my clicker. Right. Okay, so here to talk to you a little bit about Advocate Drum, and actually it's convenient that Ben Cruz is here from the Next Move New York program, because I can kind of talk some what kind of preceded that and led into the Next Move New York. So, oh, there we go. All right. So there's a couple things I'm going to talk about, just kind of what we do to protect and strengthen Fort Drum, how we work on retention of transitioning soldiers, some other issues that we played a role in leading up to the point where the regional council got the Next Move New York program as well, that grant. So one, I think why Fort Drum's important and why we exist is Fort Drum's importance to the region. What we haven't gotten it back from the printer, so what you have is a Xerox copy of the report that's going to be printed here another week. But each year Fort Drum releases a report on what they spent in the economy. Direct spending, not the total economic impact, but the direct spending. Since the 1990s, Advocate Drum has had worked with a consultant to develop an economic impact model that takes the numbers we get from Fort Drum, we plug it into that model, and that model tells us not just what Fort Drum spent, but what does that spending mean to the economy? In other words, what's the additional economic impact? Because dollars turn over in the economy. And also, what are the additional jobs in the economy that are supported by Fort Drum activity? Not just those on Fort Drum, but the indirect jobs that are resulting as a case of that. So Fort Drum has all their employees, their payroll, they're spending money with vendors. Their employees spend money in the economy. The vendors, when they're spending money out in the regional economy, buying supplies, services, materials, those vendors are able to employ people, jobs that depend on Fort Drum, and buy supplies. So it filters down. So with the federal fiscal year that just ended this last September 30th, total impact was $2.48 billion. Fort Drum spent about $2 million, and basically another $500,000 of economic impact in the economy as a result of Fort Drum-related activity. On the installation were 17,018 military and civilian jobs. The way the model spits out, it shows out in the economy, not on the post, but that exist out here on our economy, another almost 5,200 jobs that are in the economy that are not Fort Drum jobs directly, but exist in our economy because of Fort Drum. And the model, actually the back page of that will show you, we also, based on the spending, indicates where those jobs are supported. And usually each year is construction, education, and healthcare are the three top level of jobs of those 5,000 where most of those jobs are made up. And sort of as a result of that, which you probably recognize with the hospital here, we also recognize that with Fort Drum being the only Army installation of its size that does not have its own school or its own hospital, they rely on the surrounding hospitals in the community for those services, and they rely on the surrounding school systems. So as a result, our healthcare, for example, if Fort Drum had its own hospital and we had our population had its own hospital, by combining them together, it creates more of a critical mass that we're able to draw more specialties that we're all able to benefit from in the community because they're serving a larger combined population. Fort Drum, you're going to hear more about this, represents a talent pool. It's one of the things that we've been stressing for years at Advocate Drum. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Those families they're our neighbors, they're our friends, their children are our children's playmates, schoolmates, teammates. They volunteer on our rescue squads, our fire departments, our PTOs. So they're important fabric of the community. And obviously, I mean, there's a whole patriotic sense of just kind of supporting them for the service they provide to our country. What we do with the economic impact model as well, and there's a typo. I was going to try to correct it, but I was having some computer problems, so I couldn't send you a corrected version today, Cassandra. But we try to break out that total economic impact by the 3 counties. So you'll see in Lewis County, for example, that total economic impact is $70.4 million, just over $70 million. About 732 jobs in Lewis County are civilian and military jobs. In other words, some military that live here and some civilian people that live in Lewis County but commute and work on Fort Drum. And about 101 direct, indirect jobs that exist. It might be the jobs at the school, it might be jobs at the hospital, it might be jobs, at the grocery store or the Walmart or the Quick Stop that exist in the community because of the population that's here to be served. And there's about 6.6% of the wage earners, and that should say Lewis County, not the Tri-County region. In the region as a whole, it's almost 20%. So about 1/5 of the jobs in the 3 counties is Fort Drum related, directly or indirectly. So you think if you lost that many jobs, what that would mean to the region, not just anyone in the county, but the region as a whole would be catastrophic. Again, which is one of the reasons Advocate Drum exists, to protect Fort Drum. So some of the initiatives, the first bullet point, since 1989, our predecessor was the Fort Drum Steering Council, had to defend Fort Drum through one of the early, what they call a BRAC, Brace Realignment and Closing Commission. Some of you may remember those. It was through a BRAC round that Rome Air Force Base ended up getting closed years back. Same thing that happened up in Plattsburgh. And then the Fort Drum Steering Council had sunset legislation. Their existence ended by legislation in 1990. We formed the Fort Drum Fort Drum Advocate Drum, also known as the Fort Drum Regional Liaison Organization, to continue that work terminally. And so there's been 7 times when Fort Drum could potentially face major cuts or closures, and Advocate Drum, or FDRLO, some of you may have known it, led the community effort, the regional effort to protect Fort Drum. The last one being 2015, when the Pentagon was looking at 31 different Army installations across the country, where they may cut as many as 8,000 to 16,000 troops. Well, if we lost 16,000 troops, that would have been most of the troops that were assigned at Fort Drum at that time. Again, we led the effort to organize a rally. In fact, the Lewis County Legislature, many of you were there, and others there. And we had the largest outpouring of community support of any of those installations when the Pentagon visited. But it wasn't just a rally that people saw that evening. During the day, we took those Pentagon officials around the region to show them the housing projects, to show them, meet with healthcare professionals and the educational services, and to hear from Fort Drum families that benefited from those services, talked about the quality of the schools, the quality of the healthcare, the community support. And basically the message we gave to the Pentagon that day was, as a lot of communities saying, don't do this to us, don't do this to us. We were able to say, because we're such good partners with Fort Drum, the larger community between healthcare, education, all of the infrastructure projects, we were able to say to the Army, don't do this to yourself. And in the end, while some installations may have lost 3,000 to 4,000 troops, some lost a few hundred, we lost 28. And that was just from reshuffling of some assignments. So hopefully we don't have to face that again. But again, if we hadn't been there and hadn't had the full-time staff that we had there at that point, we as a region could have been caught flat-footed and not been able to muster the appropriate defense. They also, when the Army does these things, they do these environmental impacts statements and assessments. And to answer those and contradict some of their concerns, we end up doing 2 loose-leaf binders of material, about this thick, to make our case and to point out some of the things that they had wrong about this region. We've worked with the community and Fort Drum to address housing issues. Again, if the military families have a problem finding quality housing or housing at all, the Army hears about that. They write to congressmen, their congressional reps hear about that. Fort Drum gets a bad name. And then if they have to make cuts, it makes us more likely to get cuts because the quality of life is less if the housing. So again, that's why the community has rallied in the past, and we've worked with the economic development agencies and the developers and such like that to make sure that to facilitate housing development in the past years to make sure it's adequate. Advocate Drum was the organization that led the advocacy for the funding to develop the Exit 48A, which is a new exit, not so new anymore, but off I-81 that goes directly to the Fort Drum Gate. Again, a part of that reason for having that was to increase and improve the deployability speed. So when Fort Drum does have to muster troops to be assigned overseas, they can deploy them, get them on the highway quicker. And again, that adds to military value. So that's a lot of what we're often advocating for is for the military value of Fort Drum. Same thing with the funding for a railhead back in 2007, 2005 that got built in 2007. They've since gotten funding for another additional railhead. Advocate Drum, again, was the advocate for getting funding in 2016 for that new bridge that cuts over Route 26, say between Carthage and a lot of people from Lewis County take that route through Carthage and on up to Evans Mills and above. And what that does is it'll before even the troops on Fort Drum had to go through 2 security gates. Now they can, without going through that, they can cross over from the main cantonment area over to the airfield without having to go through security. It makes things a lot faster and more efficient. We've also put in each year, generally, we on behalf of Fort Drum, have put in requests to our congressional reps for funding for a number of projects. Gasoline Alley Control Point in Newgate there was one of the things we did. Army Physical Fitness Testing Facility. We were able to get funding awarded for Fort Drum for some airfield improvements and for training barracks and a variety of projects over the years. Other things we do too is advocate on for the community with Fort Drum on areas of mutual concern. It might be healthcare, it might be infrastructure. One case not too long ago was, for example, with Lewis County General Hospital. We helped to make the connection with Fort Drum that then led to the contract for maternity services to be able to be provided to Fort Drum families at Lewis County General, which in turn helps the viability of the hospital here. Oftentimes we act as Fort Drum's booster club. A couple examples of that in 2016. There was the effort. We don't know if the East Coast Missile Defense Site is going to get built, but at that point in time, when they're looking at a site, Fort Drum was one of 3 installations in the country that were being looked at here, Michigan and Ohio. We rallied an effort, got about 10,000 signatures, other letters of support, because community support was a factor in that selection, and working with our congressional reps. And again, Fort Drum was ended up out of those 3 being selected as if they built a missile defense site as being the preferred site for that. That would bring 600 to 800 new jobs, not to mention the construction jobs to build it. Whether that happens or not depends if what congressional priorities and defense priorities, if they've changed over the years. There's talk now about a Golden Dome. Whether that will carry over to this or not, I'm not sure. But if it had been there, again, we were able to lead that drive to help Fort Drum get selected. Just a couple years ago, 2022, the Army was looking to place 5 what they call multi-domain task forces. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But again, we had about 2 weeks to respond, and community support was a key factor in their selection of the process, and we ended up being selected. But multi-domain being air, land, sea, cyber, and space, those 5 domains. And we ended up being selected to host 1,500 troops as part of that new multi-domain task force. And again, that adds more troops, that adds more support services, and keeps Fort Drum more active, more viable, more people earning money in the region. Fort Drum Day in Albany. Every year we go down to Albany with a contingent from Fort Drum. The soldiers bring down equipment and display, kind of demonstrate some of what they're doing. We're there to meet with legislators with exhibits from the region, and kind of we'll meet with legislators, kind of promote greater awareness downstate on Fort Drum's importance to the region and to the state. I mean, certainly if we lost Fort Drum, we know what it would mean to us, but what would it mean to the state in terms of the services they would have to provide by high unemployment levels if we lost Fort Drum? And also make a lot of downstate legislators who aren't aware that it even exists up here. So we'll be doing that again May 4th of this year. 2023, just to kind of help again support Fort Drum's efforts for recruitment, we helped promote Military Careers Days, which had about 19 different schools, high schools in the area. We were able to take kids on post for the day to put their hands on equipment, sit in the helicopter, see demonstrations, kind of hands-on experience to say, hey, if you're thinking about it, if you're not thinking about college or you're not thinking about this, the Army is a good career choice for training, and to kind of show them what they could experience in that. And we always publish the Now You Know piece, which I just put out the most recent copy here to you, which kind of carries a variety of facts for educating the community and our legislators and other officials about Fort Drum's value and the partnership between Fort Drum and the community. And it talks about quality of life, education, healthcare, and such. So this is a multi-domain task force I talked about. Again, we led that effort to get Fort Drum selected for that. It does add to Fort Drum's military value. It also kind of adds to the prestige of the installation to be one of 5 hosting one of those task forces. You're going to be hearing from Ben Cruz here on the Next Move New York program. So I mentioned earlier, one of the things for years, Advocate Drum, because of our close relationship with Fort Drum, realized that it's been a challenge for military spouses to find employment, and also recognizing when you've got 300 soldiers or so transitioning out of the Army each month. Fort Drum has always told us in the past, although so about 3,600 soldiers a year transitioning out. About a third of them indicate they'd like to stay in the area. About a third say, we're going to go back home. We want to be near family. Go. Then there's that other third that they're going to go where the jobs are. So the thought was, if we can at least improve job opportunities, at least a connection to those job opportunities for that, that's a potential 3,600 new, we know whether it's in government or you hear from your local businesses, workforce being a critical challenge, trying to find workers, people with skills. These soldiers come out well-trained. They're very adaptable, resourceful, possess a lot of the skills and the qualities that an employer is looking for. But also the other thing is trying to work as well on improving opportunities for military spouses to find employment. Because, soldiers, it improves their own economic stability and security. The wife or the male, either one, the spouse comes here. In the past, New York State is very regulatory, very strict on a lot of its licensing. You might have someone coming with lots of years' experience as a school teacher or some other professional degree. Yet they come to New York and it takes them 3 years to get certified, and by then they're getting transitioned, reassigned to another installation. So we worked with the state, with the Department of State, which handles a lot of licensing. They now have a waiver, a process where if you're a military spouse, you can indicate that, and they'll streamline the process to get you certified so you can find work sooner. And we also worked with the Board of Regents to establish a transitional J teaching certificate. Basically, our schools were having trouble trying to recruit teachers, and yet here's this ready, experienced, trained workforce of teachers that have taught elsewhere around the country that could work but couldn't get certified. By working with the Ed Department, they created a new certificate, basically that allows a spouse comes in as a teacher, they can work for a school district, they can start work right away. The school district just has to certify they're hiring that person. Then they have a year to meet the same requirements any other professional teacher in New York State would have to work. So again, that benefits our schools by having trained people to draw on, but it also helps secure Fort Drum again. If military spouses have a hard time finding work because of New York's guidelines, again, it makes Fort Drum a less desirable place for families to want to be. And if it's a less desirable place for families that want to be, it makes us more likely to be on the chopping block or not, or less likely to get assignment of new troops in the future. Let's see. Oh, and so one thing I'll add on the workforce. So again, we'd write editorials in business magazines. We'd speak, we co-op, we did some joint workshops with Lewis County Economic Development and the workplace with employers, kind of making them aware of this workforce at Fort Drum and the opportunities and how to reach them and attend the career fairs. And I think our work over the years raised the awareness that the North Country Regional Economic Development Council finally recognized that. So a couple years ago, when the 10 regions were submitting a plan for, to address some aspect of economic development, the council recognized that we had a unique challenge here with workforce, but also a unique solution in terms of having Fort Drum. And that's the Next Move New York program, which you're going to hear from Ben about here shortly. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Next presentation, Next Move New York, Ben Cruz.
Oh, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hi. So my name is Ben Cruz. I am the program administrator for Next Move New York. And to segue a little bit into Advocate Drum. Advocate Drum it's a very unique and a special organization because I was in the military for 20 plus years in different cities and different countries and different states. And I never seen an organization that's so intertwined with an installation. So that's very unique that we have here in the North Country. So Next Move New York. So our mission statement is essentially what we're trying to do on a daily basis at Next Move New York is to build a bold new initiative to grow the New York State workforce by retaining military spouses, transition service members, and veterans. And when I mean veterans, I don't mean veterans that are just here in the New York State, also veterans that want to come back to New York State. And like Dave said, a couple of years ago, New York State created a competition and it challenged all 10 regions for the representatives of those regions to go back to their own region and to identify a single challenge in that region and to come up with a unique solution based on that region. And that in itself is challenging because now you're asking a bunch of individuals to go back to a massive region and like, hey, how do we identify one single challenge and how we come up with one unique solution? And obviously, like everything else we do, we form a solutions work group. And that solutions work group, where a lot of individuals from different entities and industries, whether higher education or nonprofit or profit, and then they came together into a room. And then, that conversation went back and forth. But the one thing that was true when I was stationed here as a young soldier, and it's true when I came back here 2 years ago, is that we do have a migration out challenge, right? And then that migration out challenge forms a workforce gap. And then the biggest three things that form that workforce gap is that we have an aging workforce that's retiring across the North Country, all 7 counties and New York State, with no backfill. 2, we have young individuals that graduate high school and they leave the area for XYZ reason. That's factor number 2. And 3, as our companies across the North Country and New York State continue to grow, so is the headcount need. So you combine those 3 pillars right there, you have a workforce gap. And that was true when I was stationed here 15 years ago, and it's true when I came back here 2 years ago. So they're like, okay, what's unique about us here? What's unique about the North Country that the other regions don't have? What's unique about us is we have a Ford Drum New York, right? The other regions don't have Ford Drum. Ford Drum is the biggest single-site employer in New York State. I did not know that until I got here. At any given day, there's over 17,000 individuals at Ford Drum. The opportunity comes roughly 4,500 individuals, 3,500 transition service members, and 1,000 military spouses transition out of the military year over year. That's where the opportunity is at. So we can retain that profile to stay here, live, love, stay here, and find gainful employment that has direct and indirect tax implication. Next slide. So this is your Next Move New York team. You have myself, Ben Cruz. I did 20 plus years in the Army, active duty, infantry guy. From there, I went to corporate America, working PricewaterhouseCoopers, doing workforce strategy. To the right, we got Eric Lowe. He's a program manager. He's a U.S. Army veteran. He was stationed here at Fort Drum, got out of Fort Drum, and stay here. And in the middle, we have Sarah Wider. She's a product. She's a Lewis County product. She was born here. She went to school here, and then she went to college here. And she's our regional business liaison. The 3 of us make Next Move New York. So holistically speaking, Next Move New York, the overall strategic investment is housed in 3 different entities. To our left, we have Advocate Drum, and the project that we have in Advocate Drum is called Live, Love, State. What's unique about that project is that a lot of us, especially like the individuals like me that spent 20 plus years in the Army, we PCS, we move around every 2 to 3 years. And when it comes time to retirement, the conversation, and the family goes like, so where are we going to live, once you retire? And usually we narrow it down to the top 3 duty locations. And that's based on experience, how we felt there. And that's what that project is all about. It's creating experiences for the military family with the intent that they see what we have here in the North Country and they're like, man, maybe I want to stay here. This place is fun. This place is being intentional about making us having all this amazing experience with the family. So that's very unique about that project. And then to the middle of it is the Development Authority in the North Country. That's where my project sits. that's where the overall leadership framework and strategic plans going forward. That's where we have multiple different projects. One of them is the Career Connect program project. The other one is the Veterans Ambassador program project. And then the other one is the Employer Incentive Program project. And to the right of that, we had Jefferson Community College, and then their bucket, the line of effort is education and training program. So all these projects interact with the military family, whether that's a service member, the military spouse, or the veteran from a different lens, whether that's from an experiential lens, a workforce lens, a mentor to mentee lens, or a higher education lens. And then when we interact with them, the intent of that is to build a robust pipeline of workforce for New York State. The one thing that we have rolled out lately is called the Job Matching Portal. This is our software that we implemented in our website. And the intent of the software is where employers, it doesn't matter whether it's the employers here or the employers somewhere in the central New York, they can come to the website, get into the portal, and they can directly interact with talent at Fort Drum, whether that's a military spouse, the service member transitioning out, or the veteran already. They can go, the employer can go in there, set up an account, and they can put in there the kind of skill set that they're looking for the company, right? And then the minute they put all the data in there, the system will start already making matches based on the talent that's available. So that's very unique. And this is a free resource for anybody here in New York State. On the flip side to that, the candidates at Fort Drum, whether it's the military spouse, the service members, or the veteran, they can go in here, they build a profile, and then they start inputting all the data, all the information about themselves in there. And then the system will start showing them all the jobs available in the area based on the skill sets, capabilities, and experience of that individual. And then from there, they can apply. What's unique about that they don't have to go to 1,000 different websites looking for work. All of the jobs that are available in the area that are posted online are being showcased in this specific website. So it's very unique for both the employer and the employee. Also, if you guys have more questions about this specific job portal, please reach out because my intent is to build a database from employers that are looking to work with us at Fort Drum. This is one of our success stories. We have many more of these. This specific individual, he was transitioned out of Fort Drum. He has a bachelor's degree, a CDL, and logistics experience, but he didn't want to be a driver. He didn't want to be a truck driver and all that stuff. And so we were working with him. And then as we continue campaigning for Next Move New York across the North Country, we came across this specific school district that they came up to us like, hey, we have this position, really hard to fill the role. We're looking for an individual that has logistics experience with a bachelor's degree and a CDL, but he's not going to be a driver. And then once we get that kind of data information from the employer or the entities, that's how we create the match. And then we connected these individuals with that entity, and then they couldn't hire him fast enough. He was a perfect individual for the role, and he's still there to this day. And what it worked out for him specifically is that that's the school district that he wanted to stay at because his kids go there, and within the footprint that he wanted to stay at, and doing the similar job, kind of admin type work, but that require a CDL without the driving. And we have many more of the success stories, whether that's here in Lewis County or in Jefferson or St. Lawrence or anywhere else in New York for that matter. But we're making an impact on both sides. So, I always tell people, one of the reasons when I go to Drum a lot, and I always see entities from North Carolina. I see entities from Texas. I see entities from California. I see entities from Florida. And my team, they come up to me like, Ben, why do they come here? And the reason they come here is to compete for that talent, right? Even though their own state have military installations, they figured out a long time ago that the military profile comes with an economical impact, right? A lot of us, especially the individuals that retired, comes with what they call federal dollars, because you retire, you get an army pension, so those federal dollars. So all these other states figure that out, and then now they come here to recruit that talent to bring it back to the state because of the economical impact the service member, the transition service member, especially the one that retired, has in the community. So if you have any more questions for Next Move New York and want to partner with us or learn more about us, please reach out to us. This is our QR code. If you scan this, it'll take you to a website, and you can put in there your information. Or on the flyer and the business card, you have my contact information, and we can talk more about Next Move New York. But do you guys have any questions for me about Next Move New York?
I have one, Ben. What do you feel is the single most important factor in making a GI decide to stay in the area? Is it jobs? Is it the community? Is it the respect they get? What do you think, in your opinion, is it number one?
So that's a lot of opinions, but I'm gonna give you mine because I'm not from here, as you guys can tell. So I was stationed here in the through my career. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I was stationed here when I was a young NCO in 2010. And I remember like it was yesterday. Somebody hit my mailbox. Where I used to live in Watertown, they hit my mailbox, and then my neighbor called me like, "Hey, somebody hit your mailbox on the ground." And I think I was on the field or something. I forgot what I was doing, but I was like, "I'll fix it when I get home." But by the time I got home, that mailbox was better than I had it. It was stronger and like a better quality. And I tried to pay the individual, and he's like, "No, I don't want money. That's how we do it here." And I lived, when I think I live in a lot of places, I live in a lot of places. I live, between Georgia, North Carolina, Kansas, Italy, Germany, and all the other random countries that I got sent to. The sense of community here in the North Country is second to none, right? That we take care of ourselves, right? So that's pretty unique. So for me, it was that. For me, it was the neighbors, right? And I'm walking around, at least in my neighborhood, and people say hi, and then we start talking, and 45 minutes pass by later, like nothing. That's for me, that sense of community. For other individuals, it's the schools. New York is not perfect, but the one thing that New York does right is the schools, right? We're number 5. We're in the top 10 in the nation when it comes to school. Our schools are phenomenal. So that's the second reason, for at least for family of 4 like mine. Another reason will be safety. I mean, I know we have crime, but we really don't have crime, right? Like I used to live in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a different ballgame. Like over here, I leave my car open. And actually, if you go out to my truck right now, you can open it. It's not unlocked because that's how secure I feel here. We don't have no crime here. So it's safety, it's the schools, the sense of community, and also for me, no traffic. Traffic gives me anxiety. I drive a truck, and I used to drive to work in Atlanta, and by the time I got to work, I was sweating BBs from head to toe, right? Because of anxiety. So those things right there.
Well, there is one time of the year you do have to lock your cars, and that's when zucchini's ripe. Because all of a sudden, zucchini appears in your car all the time. You don't know what to do with it.
That is true. That is true. That's a good reminder. Any other questions? Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And by the way, this is the first county that I had showed up that somebody greeted me with amazing Kroger bologna. That's my favorite bologna. I just want to say thank you. That person know who it is.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Ben. We now move on to draft resolutions. Cassandra.
Thank you. Draft resolution number 1, authorizing the creation of a Lewis County Health System Stabilization Reserve to support the financial stability of the Lewis County Health System. The reserve will be used to address unexpected financial needs, including deficits, intergovernmental transfer payments, and other liabilities. The county treasurer is authorized to establish the reserve and make an initial transfer of $1.5 million from the 2026 budget. Future funding additions require legislative approval, and withdrawals are permitted either through the approved annual budget or by separate legislative resolution.
Would someone like to move? Herb? Do I have a second? Vinny? Any discussion?
No, Tim, with this, if we do not use all of the reserve that we've already budgeted, will that stay in that category, or will it be moved into this category? And is this something we can expect on a regular basis, this new category to be refilled?
Yes, we expect. So the IGT payment that we budgeted this year was for $4.5 million. $3 million of that was county dollars that we typically budget every year. 1.5 million of that was money that came from the hospital, non-Medicaid dollars, so private dollars that were transferred to the hospital. And that's what's going into this fund. If we do not have to use that to make IGT payments this year, it will stay in that fund and roll over next year, and it'll be available. So when we have those years with really high IGT payments, the whole idea is to just try to level that out so we don't get this big roller coaster that we've had in the past.
Is it still going to come before the legislators for approval, or I'm reading that it doesn't have to?
The only time it would not is in the approval of the budget. So when we budget, if we budget 4.5 million, which is what we did this year, 1.5 of it will be in this account and 3 million is, so that's already been approved. So I wouldn't necessarily come back in front of the legislators, but if it's anything outside of that, it will come in front of the legislators.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion number 1 is adopted and will be forwarded to the full board for action.
Draft resolution number 2, authorizing an agreement between the Lewis County Public Health Agency and Beaver River Central School to provide preschool tuition-based special education services for children with disabilities as required under New York State education law. The agreement will run from September 1st, 2026 through August 31st, 2027, with automatic annual renewals unless terminated with 90 days notice. Costs will be based on state-approved rates and the number of children served.
Someone like to move that? Vinnie? Do I have a second? Mike? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion, resolution number 2 will be adopted and will move to the full board for action.
Draft resolution number 3, amending the Lewis County compensation plan to address staffing needs within the sheriff's office. It abolishes 1 full-time chief deputy position and 1 part-time civil clerk position and creates 1 full-time jail nurse position to improve medical staffing at the correctional facility and ensure compliance with state regulations. The change is cost neutral and effective retroactively from February 27th, 2026 through December 31st, 2026.
Would someone like to move that? Barry? Do I have a second? Herb? Any discussion?
When you mention 1 full-time jail nurse, would that be the only jail nurse, or would there be a set?
No, this is, so there's been a full-time jail nurse, and we're searching for a full-time jail nurse right now. The sheriff feels that he needs 2 full-time jail nurses to make this sustainable. And in order to make that happen within his existing budget, he's willing to eliminate the first deputy position and that clerical position to fund 2 jail nurses. There's already 1 in, been created. This is creating a second one.
Are there presently full-time employees in those positions, or are those just vacant positions that haven't been filled?
Those are vacant positions.
Okay.
One of them had a person who left, and then the other one has been vacant.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion adopted and will be forwarded to the full board for action.
Draft resolution number 4, authorizing the transfer of $8,000 in Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds from the Dislocated Workers Program to the Adult Program for Program Year 2025, covering the period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027, in accordance with guidance from the New York State Department of Labor.
Would someone like to move that? Herb, second. Vinnie? Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Draft resolution number 4 is adopted and will be forwarded to the full board for action. We have no unfinished business. We do have new business. Colonel Elizabeth Duque has been designated as the incoming commander of the U.S. Army Medical Department activity at Fort Drum. As you may recall, on July 25, the Lewis County Board of Legislators adopted a resolution appointing Colonel Christina Berkner as ex officio member of the Lewis County General Hospital Board of Managers Following Colonel Berkner's departure, the Board of Managers now seek to appoint the incoming commander to serve as a ex officio capacity. At its meeting on March 25th, 2026, the Board of Managers approved a motion recommending this appointment to the Board of Legislators. Based on this information, a draft resolution has been prepared and distributed to the Human Services Committee for consideration.
So draft resolution number 5 is appointing Colonel Elizabeth Duque, commander of the U.S. Army Medical Department activity at Fort Drum, as an ex officio, non-voting advisory member to the Lewis County General Hospital Board of Managers, as recommended by the Board of Managers to support collaboration with Fort Drum and local military healthcare needs.
Someone like to move that? Vinnie? Second? Mike? Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone oppose? Draft Resolution 5 is adopted and will be forwarded to the full board for action. There's no executive session. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Vinnie? Second? Mike? We're adjourned.
Committee meeting to order. Cassandra, can we have a roll call?
Yes, Legislator Mosher,
Here.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Here.
Legislator Frost,
Here.
Legislator Osborne,
Here.
Legislator Leindecker,
Here.
and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. I move to approve the committee meeting minutes from March 31st. Do I have a second? Herb, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. The first presentation on today's agenda is Lewis County Public Transportation Micro Transit Program. I'm going to invite Christine Truth, via Partnership Principal, and Tiffany Sadowski from Lewis County Community Development Specialist forward.
Hello. So you may recall that I was here back in August to present on our study and the microtransit plan. As a reminder, microtransit refers to small scale and on-demand public transit service using smaller vehicles and booking technology to fill the gaps that exist in our traditional transportation systems. So think Uber and Lyft. Similar to how Bernie Bus is our operator for the bus system, we will be partnering with VIA to operate the microtransit service here. So today we have Christine Truth, Partnerships Principal at VIA, joining us to share about the company and the Lewis County project. Go ahead, Christine.
You can share them. Will utilize, particularly these first three years, for transit. The funding for the service, again, is largely through NYSERDA's mobility program. And they require you to use EVs as part of that funding. So there are some infrastructure and charging that come along with that are also included in the service design. And the charging will also be located near the transfer hub. So this is generally the service overview. I thought it would be helpful to kind of walk through what a rider experience would be like as they utilize this service. So before I jump into this, two things I want to say. First, so Jimmy talked a little bit about sort of microtransit and how this will work is you know, the whole county at one point will be a zone, but let's, for example, if we're talking about the central zone, there will be vehicles moving around within that zone. Riders will be able to request a ride and book a ride. And they will be able to do that through a phone application that you're looking at now, or if folks are not using a mobile, a smartphone, they will be able to call into the dispatcher who will be able to book a ride for them. They will be able to get text and phone updates if they call into the dispatcher. If they book through the app, they will also get sort of push notifications through the app. The app itself and the vehicles that are moving around within the zone, those will be branded for Lewis County. So it'll feel like it'll match the branding of what's a fixed route. It'll be a localized service, and it'll feel like your public transit system. But here's an example of what a rider experience would be like. So if they're booking through the app, they would pull up the app. I'm sure for many of you, this is kind of a familiar interface. They would put in where they're going. They would then, in section 2 here, they would be met with trip proposals. They'd be able to select their preferred option. I should also mention here that we can have the fixed route bus schedule in a year show up. So if there is a trip that could be served by that, we can also have that show up as a trip option. And then third here, they would be directed where to meet their vehicle. So that may be at their door. If it's in a more dense area, that may be on the closest corner. So they'll be directed to where their vehicle will pick them up, and they'll be able to track the vehicle before and during the ride. And this interface is just meant to be really intuitive, really easy to navigate, and a really easy self-service tool for folks. So that's a little bit about the rider experience. And last, I'm going to talk about sort of letting people in the community know about this service, so marketing this service. We are big believers at VIA that you can't just put down a microtransit service, you can just put down a new service and expect people to know that it's there or how to use it. So on the left here, we have an example of some of our local events and community engagement events that we've done, just as an example in other communities. So for example, like tabling at farmers markets to let people know about the service. This bottom left is going to a seniors facility to actually show riders there how to use the service. And then on the right here are just some examples of like tailored marketing to let the general public know that this is an option for them. This is an available public transportation option. So I hope that was helpful to kind of understand where we're at in the process and what it may look like for riders in Lewis County. That was all I officially had prepared, but I can stop sharing. And if anyone has any questions, or Tiffany, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Does anyone have any questions? No? No questions today. Thanks, Christine. Oh, go ahead.
One of the slides there showed basically a map with the roads, like, that were highlighted, but it didn't really give any details what all those colors meant.
Those are our current bus routes.
Those are, so if somebody like that's not on those current bus routes can use this app basically to get a ride.
Yep, and it's going to cover the whole county.
The whole county.
In our first kind of test period, it'll be just that central zone that was in the big map. And then from the data that they collect from our time just in the central zone, will then expand to the entire county. So no matter where you live, you'll be able to use this service.
Is the app available, or do you have a link for it, or what's the name of it you search for?
Christine, do you have a current app that we could demo that I could send?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can share with you all. Probably Putnam County is, I'll have to look at what the app exactly is called, but you can look up, you could even right now just Google like Putnam County on demand, and you'll be taken to a homepage where you can download the app and you can sort of like get a feel for what that service looks like, if that's helpful. Obviously, we don't quite have the app set up for Lewis County yet, but it'll be the same concept.
Right. It'll be branded specifically for us. So it'll be our own app.
Not available. Not available yet.
Not yet.
Who will the drivers?
Sorry.
Who will the drivers be?
Yeah, so the drivers will be in Tiffany. I don't know if you wanted to answer that, but drivers are generally they're from, obviously, in this case, they would be from Lewis County. So they're drivers within the community. They're smaller vehicles, so the sort of requirements around licensing are different and not quite as stringent.
So it's just like Uber. Basically, people just fill out the paperwork and do the background checks to be an approved driver.
Yeah, so
At
our
1099.
kind of like background checks and training are much more in depth, and we can kind of share what that process looks like with Tiffany, if you want some more information on that, and sort of how they're paid is differently. It's by the hour. It's like a living wage it's above the living wage by the hour, and not like on a per trip basis.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So for our second presentation, Property Improvement Incentive Program, I'm going to invite Megan Krakowski from Lewis County Community Development Specialist forward to give a presentation.
Hello all. I'm here to talk about. We need to put the mic on. Okay, sorry. I'm here to talk to you all about the real property tax law, sections 421F and 421P. 421F is incentive program related to residential properties that encourages investment in 1 and 2 family homes by phasing the tax impact for qualifying capital improvements. So the first year it covers 100% of the increase in assessed value, and then it phases it down by 12.5%. And this exemption was enacted in New York State in 1993 and has been effective at stabilizing and improving older housing stock while protecting taxpayers from sudden increases. I'm sure you all know those properties that only invest on the inside so that their tax assessments don't go up. This would kind of counterbalance that by not negatively impacting that homeowner so severely on those years following the improvements. Eligible properties would be owner-occupied residential buildings and for single-family and 2-family dwellings that are at least a majority 5 years old by the square footage. In the qualifying work, that's up to the Board of Legislators to describe in the law, but it's reconstruction, alterations, and improvements. And you guys can all decide what would or would not be eligible, so you can tailor this law to rule out things that you would not like to be eligible, like in-ground pools, specialty landscaping that's not visible, that does not overly improve the general Lewis County for the good. But also the work must have started after the local law has been adopted. That's another important provision. And it is also, the project value must be at least $3,000 and no greater than $80,000 in market value. And the Board of Legislators could reduce this market value number to no less than $5,000. The average other counties have done is between the $40,000 and $60,000. So it's kind of like minimizing your financial risk, because if everybody goes out and does these improvements that first year, it would feel like a loss here at the county. And because New York State already has this process in place, property owners would just submit the form RP 421F with the supporting documentation to the local assessors. There's a possible structure if Lewis County wanted to enact this opting in to this local law. They would set the local cap. You could do 40 to 60,000, or you could leave it at the 80,000 at the maximum to balance homeowner relief with your fiscal prudence. You could clarify the projects, major systems of additions, habitable space conversions, and explicitly exclude certain work, permanent landscaping not visible from the road, installations of pools and accessory structures, boathouses, docks, outdoor kitchens, etc. And you could specify what kind of documentation you guys would expect to be provided, such as the building work permits, COs, invoices, and proof of payments. By adding proof of payments, that would ensure that the vendors got paid instead of just that the work is completed. You would also be able to set the internal timeline that goes along with the program to make sure it follows with the tax roll status updates and you could coordinate with school districts in the local municipal jurisdictions to do parallel adoptions so that the local taxes and the school taxes could also do these exemptions. So how you would implement this is you would draft the local law specifying the exemption schedule, the value of the cap, eligible projects, documentation standards, and coordinate it with the county attorney. You then adopt the local law following the public hearing and the Board of Legislature approval. File it with Department of State, New York State Tax and Finance, local real property tax office, and then coordinate with the municipalities and school districts for them to either use your structure as a template or just to notify them, and then begin the outreach proceedings to the assessors and the public. Oneida County has had this in effect since 1998, and they have had an increase in home renovations where the exemption is available, neighborhood stabilization via reinvestment in aging housing stock, long-run tax-based gain after exemption phases out, and improved assessments fully entering the tax rolls. So we did some review of our recent 2025 permit data, looking at the towns of Denmark, Diana, and Lowville, and we have 20 residential improvement permits during the 2025 construction year, and they averaged $25,875, and 7 of those 20 permits were closed out and finished. So of that totaled $177,000. The total cost does not always translate to increased taxable value, though. So some of those improvements could have been for roofs, and the assessor could not value a roof as an improvement to the property, and it could be a 0. Those are all bargains. So impacts to the county, there's an annual tax base growth, housing stability, increased code compliance, because we would require them to do the permits and require code compliance, neighborhood vitalization, community well-being, economic and fiscal benefits. And then for homeowners, there would be no increase in taxable assessed value unless the town does a townwide reeval. And then years 2 through 8, they would just have a annually adjusted, gradual, consistent increase. And this supports the county's housing goals by improving safety, quality, reinvestment in older homes, and supports aging housing stock, maintain long-term property conditions. And there's many ways that we could be evaluating success through this program by the numbers of these applications, the aggregate value of qualifying improvements, the change in residential assessed values, permit volumes of residential work, and then post-exemption tax base impacts. And the building codes permit software should be able to sort and filter out these changing trends accordingly. So whereas the first program was talking about just residential improvements, this 421P is for adding accessory dwelling units. So if people wanted to add accessory dwelling units, this could go up to $200,000 cap on improvements. And it would also encourage creation of flexible small-scale housing options without new infrastructure. So it doesn't mean we don't need to have subdivisions, we don't need to have additional hookups to municipal water, those types of things that all cost money and time, and to add more housing stock, which is in dire need throughout the county. And we can adopt both at the same time because they go through the same process. By doing that, we would add housing diversification, economic development through the construction demand, and neighborhood reinvestment, supports neighbors and supports family and workforce needs. ADUs provide caregivers and senior living options, starter housing for young adults, and rental income for homeowners, and their long-term tax-based growth. And the ADU program goes for 10 years rather than the 8 years. Both programs require local law adoptions after a public hearing, filing with Department of Tax and Finance, Department of State, review by local assessors, documentation, COs, proof of costs, education, and outreach to homeowners. But by doing it together, it would have less confusion, offer consistency to homeowners, easier outreach campaigns, and an easier training cycle for assessors. With short-term revenue deferral, both exemptions may result in a temporary reduction in the county's taxable value limited to the number of eligible improvements. The county may see a modest short-term decrease value while exemptions are active, but these values of the improvements are not the values of the entire property. It's just the improvement. After the exemption period, the full value is restored to the tax roll, strengthening the long-term base. Improvements increase the total assessed value of the property, which produces permanent tax growth at the end of the schedule. And long-term county benefits encourages investment in older homes, create new compliant housing units, support seniors' workforce housing and multi-generational needs, support stabilized communities and reduce substandard housing, stimulates local construction and home improvement activity, and lead to higher assessed values countywide over time. Recommended actions: if you adopt both 421F and 421P concurrently, because it supports the county's goal for improving and expanding housing, encourages both renovation and small-scale housing creation, helps homeowners afford improvements needed to meet building codes, makes the guidelines easier for taxpayers to understand, reduces administrative overhead for one public hearing notice, provides a clean framework that towns and villages can easily adopt, allows the county to track results with shared metrics. And then next steps is you could set a public hearing after the law is finalized to be at the near the end of the year. And you have two paths to adopt the law. You can either adopt it by December, giving the required 90-day time frame for property owners to apply by the March 1st deadline, but that gives them just 90 days to file permits, obtain approvals, start construction and complete work, or adopt the law just before March 1st, allowing them to get started in the spring of the season after March 1, 2027. Any questions?
I have a,
Go ahead.
I have a question, like on the exemption phase, it phases out on the 421F at year 8, but what's the schedule look like? What's the percentage as it steps up, correct?
Yeah, so it goes from 100, then it decreases by 12.5%. So it's 100 minus 12.5%, and then 12.5%. So, but you all could change that if you wanted to a different.
So on the ADU one, is that 12.5%? So it's exempt for the first 5 years. And then for the next 10 years, it's 12.5% or it's 10%?
No, that has a different schedule. And again, it's customizable by you all, but the first 5 years, it could be exempt fully. And then the next 5, it would be down by 5. Reduced to,
By 10%.
yeah, now 10%.
$50, $25, $0 over the next 5 years. That's the
Andy, can you go up?
So on the ADU portion, which is the 421P, the amount exempted would be the increase in assessed value for the additional dwelling unit. And then it would be exempt only on that amount. So say it was a $100,000 project and it added, $100,000 in value to the assessment. That $100,000 on the assessment would be exempt fully for the first 5 years. And then after 5 years, it drops down by 25% each year until after a 10-year period, that $100,000 is fully taxable.
That's the only one that really makes sense, I don't think. Plus, who's gonna do the monitoring of this? Who's gonna do the admin work in-house?
That would be done programmatically in our RPS system. When the exemption is entered in the system, each year we would do an update and it would automatically calculate the exemption changes.
But if a town does a reval, it goes right back to 100% taxable.
No, it doesn't. The assessor would have to apportion out the increase in assessed value for that project.
But this is only for the county
This would,
apportion tax, the
this would
towns and
be-
school districts.
they would all have to pass their own, yes.
So they could still be at 100% on the town side. It would only be the county side.
Correct, yes. And the other thing with the improvement exemption, it's not a transferable exemption. So if somebody got the exemption and then in year 5, they sell the property, that exemption goes away.
I got a question. I know we're all trying to do something here to make, improve some of the rundowns and whatnot. But you said that this 421F was adopted in 93. I know none of us were here then. Why are we just hearing about it now, and why hasn't it been implemented before this time to try and keep this up? I mean, this is almost, 40 years, 30 years, whatever. It's been sitting there, and all of a sudden, I mean, is there some reason why the county's never done this?
It's never been brought up. It's never been asked about. Megan was trying to look for ways to incentivize beautification of the county and also to find ways to increase the amount of dwellings that are in the county. So these two exemptions kind of are very similar.
It was brought up through the comp plan I was working on in the village of Port Lyden on how they can get people to invest in the properties, because people don't want to invest in the exterior of the properties because they fear having to pay extra income tax, or not income, real estate property tax. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
It's probably, could be used, yeah.
So like the village was going to adopt their own program, and then I reached out to Candy, and Candy was like, oh, this aligns with this New York State program. So they already had the framework.
Okay.
How much extra administrative work are we putting on the county to do this, or the towns if they chose to opt in?
Yeah, it's basically, it's going to be an assessor's responsibility. It's going to just add another exemption that they have to manage. I suppose the complexity is going to come into however much detail you put into the local law as well. Like Megan mentioned in her slide presentation, it's up to the county to set how much documentation you're looking for. If you just want the CO, that's fine. If you want receipts or to prove things were paid, it's all customizable.
So it could be pretty substantial then.
It
could be.
could be, depending on how complicated you wanted to make it. If you wanted it just to be, it has to be a CO'd project.
I mean, that's still requiring them to come in and get a building permit, which is sometimes more than what's happening. Right?
Sure.
You said that Oneida County passed that law in 1998. How many towns in Oneida County opted into that as well? Do you know?
A couple. I wasn't able to find a lot of data on that. And we reached out to the real property director, and they did not respond back to us either.
Herb, I own property in Oneida County, and I've never even heard of this before.
Right.
But you've had a lot of feedback on why.
Yeah,
Ask-
I've had assessors ask that have come into Lewis County from other counties that grant it. I think St. Lawrence County also grants it, and asking, why we didn't. And I said it's never come up before, but it's something that's been on the radar to do. And Megan reached out to me about it, so I thought it was a great opportunity to bring it up.
Then the other, difficult thing to going to be is to track it to see if it really induces investment. I mean, if somebody's going to build an ADU for a mother-in-law house, they're going to build it for the mother-in-law regardless of whether they get an exemption or not. So would they move forward with the construction simply because they got an exemption or because they needed to accommodate their family?
Or we renovate our house basically every year, this isn't, how are you going to distinguish between someone who already puts some money into their house every year versus someone that's only doing it because of this exemption? The increase in COs and codes may be not the whole story.
I'm thinking, what is our tax rate per thousand? Like
Six,
$6?
631.
So if they do a $40,000 improvement, that's $240 a year?
Mhm.
Is that going to incentivize somebody to spend $40,000? I think they're going to spend the 40,000 because they want to do it, not because they're going to say, oh, I can save $240 in taxes. Yeah, I'm not, you do the math and I'm not sure it's, and as far as additional dwelling units, I believe like in the town of Lewis, you can only have one dwelling on your property.
Yes. The town of Gregg is the same way. You can't have two residents on the same tax ID, right?
Right now,
What's that?
I said right now,
Yeah, but that's a town.
currently,
Are they changing that, are they?
yeah.
How much more do we want to put on our assessors too? We don't have many.
That's what I feel like. This is a lot of overhead for $250. I feel like,
$250 for the first year.
Well, that-
right, and then less, yeah.
Well, that's why I asked the question about the towns. If the towns don't buy into it, I don't think there's enough savings to really incentivize people to actually do it.
And I'm afraid we'd
Yeah.
have to hire additional people because I don't think we have enough staff to do it, that I don't know if it would justify the cost. And I feel like a lot of my constituents are going to say they'd rather not tell the county what they're putting into their property. Because you save $240. Yeah, so I don't know.
That'd be like asking the lumber yard who they're taking stuff to, and you got to keep track of it all.
Megan, thank you for the research.
I was gonna say thank you. Okay, so we will now move on to draft resolutions and motions.
Draft resolution number 1, adopting local law number 3-2026, continuing the additional mortgage tax of 25 cents per $100 of principal debt on real property in Lewis County since 2004. Following a duly noticed public hearing, the Board of Legislators formally enacts the local law with an effective date of July 1st, 2026, subject to filing with the Secretary of State.
I move that draft resolution number 1 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Herb, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion is adopted.
Draft resolution number 2, adopting updates to the county's workplace violence policy and tuition reimbursement policy to ensure compliance with New York State requirements and align with current best practices. Revisions include enhanced safety measures, training, and prevention strategies, as well as updated eligibility, benefits, and service commitments for tuition reimbursement to support workforce development. The Department of Human Resources is authorized to implement and administer the updated policies effective immediately.
I move that draft resolution number 2 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Tom, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is carried.
Draft resolution number 3, appropriating $10,285.12 in Community Development Block Grant Program income funds to the Planning and Community Development Department. The funds will be recorded as both revenue and expenditure and used to support various community development projects.
I move that draft resolution number 3 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Herb, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion's carried.
Draft resolution number 4, authorizing agreements between Lewis County and 2 Village of Lions Falls entities under the New York Forward Small Project Fund Program. Funding includes $46,025 to D2W LLC for equipment and installation related to a building use change, and $78,975 to the Lions Falls Free Library for ADA and exterior improvements. The Planning and Community Development Department will administer and monitor the projects in accordance with the grant program.
I move that draft resolution number 4 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Tom, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, resolution's carried.
Draft resolution number 5, authorizing the Planning and Community Development Department to apply for Transit Ready New York grant funding to support public transportation and infrastructure improvements in Lewis County. Proposed projects may include transit vehicles, pedestrian and roadway enhancements, and mobility hubs to improve access and connectivity. The program offers up to 100% state funding, and the resolution also authorizes acceptance of any awarded funds and execution of necessary agreements to implement the projects.
I move that draft resolution number 5 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Jeff, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Draft resolution number 6, authorizing the Lewis County Treasurer to close the capital project accounts for 3 completed bridge projects: County Route 43 over Moose Creek, Gardner Road Bridge, and O'Brien Road Bridge. With no further financial activity expected, the treasurer will reconcile each account, make necessary budget adjustments, and reallocate any remaining balances. Approximately $90,840.58 from the County Road 43 East Road project will be transferred to the general fund, while the other 2 projects have no remaining funds to appropriate.
I move that draft resolution number 6 be forwarded to the full board for action. Do I have a second? Jeff, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. There is no unfinished business for today, nor is there any new business for today or a need for the executive session. So I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? Herb, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.